Whew. Okay, so mics are hot now. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
We are here. It is July 16th. Steve is still out for taking time to, chill, breathe. I'm
It's
here with my,
summer.
it's
It's
summer.
supposed to be slow.
Mm-hmm,
It's not.
mm-hmm. No, it's not. Brittany is here to talk about lots of things. Brittany's been here before, friend of the show, friend of mine, does a lot of great work to fight this genocide and occupation going on.
Yep.
Yeah. So yesterday we've had a pretty, although it didn't pass, we've had a pretty successful week. The NDAA is currently basically killed for the time being.
It's like stalled. Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Do you want to
know,
give an update on that? Because I keep seeing people say like they've already merged our like people are very
I
confused
know.
about how the process
People
works.
people are very confused and it is confusing. Like, I'm learning about this as well, in real time. Um and also, I do see a lot of like I just I don't want to call it's misinformation, but it's like innocent, they're not doing it
Mhm,
on
mhm,
purpose. They just don't understand because there's a lot of different pieces going around and we're talking about a lot of different things. Um, but like, okay, so the NDAA is the National Defense Authorization Act. It's the act that contains all of the policy for the Department of Defense, right? And the budgets. So this does not fund anything. And the section that we've been tracking is section 219 in the House, section 1217 in the Senate. And that's what we colloquially call as the merger, the fusion,
mhm,
the Israeli Defense Tech. The real name is Israel US or US Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, right? But I mean,
mhm,
it's doing a lot.
mhm,
The cooperation there is doing a
mhm,
lot.
mhm,
Um, but so we have two chambers of Congress, which I think many Americans don't know.
mhm,
And one is the House, one is the Senate. And so you have two separate bills, but it is the same bill, two separate versions going through at around the same time, but it's a completely different process and they're not
mhm,
related to each other. So what we had weeks ago in the House was we had the amendment. Massey offered an amendment to strip Section 219 out of the NDAA, and
mhm,
that failed. So
mhm,
Section 219 is in the bill in the House. And
mhm,
unless the thing is, it's getting complicated. I'm sorry. Um,
mhm.
so the
I wish
way
I had a
things work,
whiteboard so I could
I,
like be like,
I
okay,
know,
so it's
I
like on
know,
this
because
step and it's still in there, but it's stalled and it has to pass over here. I think I can make something.
right. And the thing is like I am trying to make it more simple, but then I'm like, oh wait, but you need to know about this too. And you need to know about this too. Like they have made this process, and I think this is a bigger conversation of just the processes that they have made in the House, in the Senate, as
Uh-huh.
to how they use these processes to weaponize like power. It's
Mhm,
not a functioning democracy. Like it is not. This is not a place where like people from all different ideologies come together. It does happen on some things, but like the big things, no. It's like party line. If you're in the majority, you have the power. If you're in the minority, you don't have the power. And the issue is like I've asked, well, can't we make laws that they have to do certain things? And every time you have a new Congress, they set
mhm,
the rules, so they have complete authority over what the rules look like as how these things operate. And
mhm,
so that's a different conversation, but basically, so we're talking about the House, we're talking about Congressman Massey's amendment to strip section 219. So before a bill ever even gets to the floor, so that's like what we saw yesterday, the full floor is voting on it, all 430 some odd members. It has to go through committee first, and then it has to go what's called the Rules Committee. So the NDAA has passed committee in both chambers.
mhm,
It went to the Rules Committee, and that's where you put the amendments. And so
mhm,
that's where Thomas Massey tried to put an amendment to strike section 219 out. That
mhm,
failed. So when the rule got passed, rule is like, think of it as like the wrapping paper, like the package for the bill. When that got passed, it had section 219 in it. So when the NDAA goes to the floor, it's going to have that section in it. Now, the interesting thing in the House is that rule failed. That rule did not fail, and it failed for different reasons. This is where you're seeing things about the SAVE Act. So in that rule, they tried to staple the SAVE Act. If you're thinking about, like, you know, physically, they tried to physically staple the SAVE Act to the NDAA and say, well, if you're going to vote on the NDAA, you're going to have to vote on the SAVE Act.
And for context on the SAVE Act, this is what Donald Trump has been trying to really push through. So that's when he said, we are not going to, who is supposed to be so like FISA is stalled, right? Because he was like, we're not even going to get a new person in for, what is that role that he was trying to get someone in for? He's like, we're going to cancel the vote because you guys need to pass the SAVE Act. He's trying to make it so like the SAVE Act has to pass. And the person who kind of stapled the SAVE Act into the NDAA is a like total Trump sycophant. What is her name again?
Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, the goddess. And here's the thing.
She's fucking sucks, but she's helping us here because she made it so that none of the Democrats could vote yes on that bill. And so it stalled. But she is so entertaining.
I know. I do love her.
I don't love her. Let me pull up some stuff on her. What's her name?
She's crazy. Like let's just Anna Paulina Luna. So she represents like Tampa. I'm from Florida, so I know, and I've worked like with her office on various things. So here's the thing about being hyper partisan. It's dumb to be hyper partisan because that's not the way things work in Washington. You have to be strategic. And I mean, and the thing is, different people have different roles, right? But like Anna Paulina Luna, for all of her craziness, she is a mother. I think she's a mother, but like she cares. She's like, she might be a survivor. I don't know if she is, but she really cares about sexual abuse survivors, and she cares about women and children issues. So it's like, even though she is one of the craziest of all the crazies, you can get her on some issues. I think she was supportive of the Epstein. I haven't looked all of this up, so I don't want to be saying things, but I just generally know there are issues when it comes to women and children that you can get her on. So you have to like, you can't just put everybody in a box and be like, they are horrible. Rick Scott, put him in the box. He's horrible. Like, you might even find examples where he has done something good, but no.
Can we play this? Okay. I'm going to play this, then I'm going to play what actually happened. Also, like the
this was really funny. She's really cute, funny. Though.
She is cute, but so Elon Musk's baby mama, who is used to be a MAGA influencer and now has just been like talking. And I know people feel a lot of different ways about her. I think you have to let everyone grow and evolve. She doesn't have to be perfect. We can 100%. Give her time, you know.
But I have grown and evolved.
Yes, you have. But she hates Anna Paulina Luna, and she says that her boyfriend, who she moved to Tampa for when she was like 17 or 18. She was young, was always sleeping with her. Well, she hasn't, but she's like, it's like her stuff would be in his bathroom all the time. And she would call at all hours of the day. And so she like has a whole vendetta. It's really funny, but she's beautiful. Anyways, we'll watch this and then we'll get back to the NDAA. But this
organization. And I've been going after FARA, etc. And so as I was leaving, they were asking questions. I don't have an issue asking questions, but when you're berating me and trying to block me from being able to come vote, it's an issue, but I continue to answer them. I was walking out of Rayburn, and as we were trying to walk away from them, I guess they didn't like what I was saying, so one of the lead organizers actually smacked me. And so at that point, I broke contact.
Can you like reenact how you were hit?
I was literally trying to walk away from this person, and they smacked me.
In what part of the body?
They smacked my arm.
Are you injured right now?
I mean, look, either which way, you don't touch anyone, especially if you don't like what they're saying. You cannot physically harm someone. You can't hit them. You can't block people from being able to vote.
Okay, so this is what actually happened.
Cuban people who are being killed right now by a policy of cutting off oil, cutting off every single
So, do
way
you support
that government
Marco
can get money to
Rubio's
keep the hospitals
efforts
going.
to actually get aid to the people of Cuba? Because it doesn't sound like you do.
No, because Marco Rubio has been sanctioning the Cuban people, which is hurting them by the
He's
billions.
sanctioning the government.
By
and
the
he's
billions.
No,
going
that
one
hurts
way.
the people there. They have no
Guys, you're
power.
so misinformed.
I love how
You are
TMZ is
misinformed.
chiming in.
You were in Cuba.
Well,
You
okay.
touched me.
Oh,
Do we-
it was
No,
like,
wait,
I'm
no,
sorry.
It doesn't matter. You just touched me.
All right,
You're
I
gonna
won't do
walk
that.
away right now, or else I'm gonna call Capitol
Oh,
Police. Don't touch me.
I will walk away. Bye-bye.
Now, this is the assault.
Right. And the
She's
thing is like,
crazy.
right. And you know, there, like, in fairness to Medea, like, I work with Medea on the Hill, you know, she does more of that, like the direct questioning, and she's really good at it. You know, like, she realized, like, you shouldn't touch people, and they're having a heated discussion about people dying, children dying in Cuba,
And she
you
can't
know, and
get
she
her to
acts
calm down. Yeah.
right. And then
And you
she
could tell
she was
like it was a mindless, like it was just like,
yeah,
can
and
you
then
just
and then
listen? Yeah.
right, and she like was immediately like, I'll walk away, you know, like, so she was like, I'm not going to escalate here. Like, Medea's very respectful of these. She is like pointed in her questioning, but she is respectful of them. But it's also like, you're killing kids with your policies, you know, like, we have to engage in this discussion. But the thing is that I will give to like Rep Anna Polina Luna, and like there's another one, her name is, I think it's Salazar. Like, in Florida, I call them the crazy Cubans because they're the crazy Cubans. I don't even know if they're Cuban, but they're like pro Cuba. Like, they're all Hispanic, but like they're the crazy Cuba caucus that like supports killing Cubans in order to free Cuba. Right. This kind of like the Iranian diasporas. It's the same kind of vibe. They will talk to us and they will engage. And I do want to give people credit who have opposing views and do talk and engage, because like somebody like Fetterman, like he's supposed to be like, I don't know what he's supposed to do, but he won't even engage. And the thing is like, if you are an elected official, you are supposed to engage. That is like the one part of your job, you know? And so, and, you know, I think part of like what you guys do here with like Party Crashers is like, we need to get out of the clickbait, you know, like getting a click or whatever, and like actually trying to understand the opposition, because like I've heard these discussions like with Cuba. What is going on in Cuba is horrible. We know people that have gone there, you know, that are doing work and sending the aid. The hospitals don't have power. You know, people are in the middle of surgery and they lose power and they have to use flashlights, and like, you know, the infant mortality rate has increased. I mean, what we are doing to people is not okay. It's not Christian. It's not good policy. It's not working. Like, it's not effective. But these people, weirdly, they do, some of them are cold, but like they do care about the Cuban people. They're just misguided in their approach. Like, I think I think her name is Salazar. I think she really cares about the Cuban people. She just thinks the way to help them, that she thinks they are living under an oppressive government. And in order to like dispel that and get to like a real solution, you have to be able to talk to these people.
Yeah. And so I think, and I think it's always important to try to build relationships, and you can do that without sacrificing your values at all. Like,
Exactly.
I think, you know, like sometimes people see that I will interact with, you know, I have friends who are more liberal, and leftists are like, fuck the liberals. You know, I have friends who are Republicans. And it's like, but I think I'm always very clear on my values and where I stand on issues. I'm not changing where I stand on anything. And to me, I'm like, I would rather be, you know, like, I'm not friends with anybody who's like actively, but it's like, you know, if you are trying to do better and be better, I think we can work together. And that's all. Like, we need to just start seeing this is just the world of our, like, these are our colleagues. We are all colleagues in trying to make a better world somehow. And you don't always like your coworkers, but you need to figure out how to get the projects done. And it's like, you have to get the projects done, and then sometimes you can move on and you don't have to work with them again. And sometimes you're like, okay, I can work with them sometimes, and here are my boundaries, you know. But like, we have to figure out how to talk to people in order to actually make any difference, like change happen happens to the relationship.
And I think that is a problem that the left did. And when I say the left, it's like broadly. I don't some is liberal, some is left. I know there's different variations over there. But and I think they've realized the error that when they were like, we're not going to go on this, we're not going to platform this person, the whole platforming debate. It's like, no, like I am probably the closest thing you can get to a free speech absolutist. Like I want to give like a little wiggle room, but I don't know a case where I would say no, in terms of private people's
like
right
the
to
Nazis.
No, that's the thing is like, I think you have to support the right of the Nazis to speak, because if you don't,
they have a right, yes, but I would not have a Nazi on here. I would not.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, of course.
So, like,
not.
in what way do you think let them speak? What, like, in what way?
Like there's a famous Supreme Court case of like the Nazis marching in Skokie, which I think Skokie had like a large Jewish population or historical significance, and it was allowed. And I think the reason why you have to let the Nazis march, and do their speech, and also like the university, like there is the difference between what the government does and what a private person allows, right? So you are a private person, you have your platform, you get to choose whoever you want to bring on here, right? That's your right. I would not speak to a Nazi, because that's not, I think if you're going to bring a Nazi on here, you have to be very trained in dispelling. You can't just let them spew their things. There can be use to talking to a Nazi if you can do it right, but I think that's you have to like have the ability to dispel to the audience, right? But like then there is what the government can do. And so when I talk about free speech absolutists, I'm talking in like government
what
terms,
the government can do.
Because here's the thing, and this is what we've seen: the government is not going to censor the Nazi speech. They're going to censor the dissident speech that they don't like, the speech that goes against their interests, the pro-Palestinian speech.
That's the issue to me. Is I'm all for absolutist free speech, but we're not seeing it applied broadly. And so when we see like the Nazis marched on DC the 4th of July, if that was like a Black Lives Matter protest march, they would all be
I mean
shot.
We've seen it. Like, we saw how they treated BLM versus how they treated the Unite the Right was that in this country or England? The Charlotte.
No, there was a Unite the Right. Rally
and
here too. You're frozen.
And the encampments.
Oh, no. Brittany, there you are.
Oh, sorry. The encampments. Like we have seen how, and so that's why, from a government perspective, I think it needs to be government hands-off speech, because I don't trust the government to pick and choose which speech is good, which speech is bad, because we have seen that it's not good at choosing, right? I think in terms of like the platforming debate, though, is like, should you go on, like, should you bring a Nazi here? Like, I don't know what that serves your audience, but should you go on to a Nazi podcast and try and talk to the Nazis audience and try and bring things into that space? Like that is difficult work. And I'm not saying everybody.
I'm like, I don't think I could do that. But like, somebody who's like well trained, maybe somebody who like could do it without making things worse, maybe.
Exactly.
I don't know that I could be that person.
Right. But because the left didn't go into these spaces, like, let's calm down on the Nazis, like Joe Rogan, like things that are like misogynist, like, I mean, Joe Rogan's fucking, but like people listen to him. I don't know why. But because people boycotted these spaces, all the audience, all the listeners only got one side of things, right? And then they were just kind of like radicalized and propagandized by like only one side, and they never got, and that's what Fox News does. Like, that's why Fox News is so brilliant, and that is why, in a bad way.
In the worst way, but they have completely controlled boomers and Gen X and
100%. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, when people ask me about like can the right be moved? I mean, we are seeing shifts in the right, and you know, we'll get into this with the $3.3 billion vote, right?
Mhm.
We are seeing small shifts. I don't want to overstate the shifts on the right, right? And we're
Mhm.
seeing it with younger people, and the reason why we see it with younger people is because they have access to alternative streams of information. Like
Mhm.
the game is really about information, and that's why my thing is go everywhere. And because like, so I love constitutional free speech law, and the origin of our current interpretation of the First Amendment started in I think it was a 1919 case, and it started in a dissent. So this is 1919, back when you have all the communist revolutions in Europe and stuff like that. There were two men who were distributing communist pamphlets in, I think, I don't know, New York or something like that. And they were charged and they were sentenced 20 years in prison. So we think about, oh, America, this really strong free speech. That has not been the case for 250 years. Our free speech law changed dramatically in the last century, right?
Mhm.
So imagine you were distributing a communist pamphlet. They got 20 years in jail for that, right?
Mhm.
Under this Espionage Act, right? And
Mhm.
the defense was free speech, and the defense was not upheld. And so you had two justices, Justice Brandeis, which is like, which is me. He was a Republican, but at that time we had all the big corruption in the Republican Party. So he
Mhm.
was like, I don't like the corruption. I'm changing. I'm going to side with Democrats, but I'm not really a Democrat. And we
Mhm.
had Oliver Wendell Holmes, who I think it was Republican or conservative. He has some controversial opinions, but he's very intelligent. They came up with our modern formulation of free speech. And Oliver Wendell Holmes's description is the marketplace of ideas, right?
Mhm.
Very, you know,
Mhm.
liberal, like,
Mhm.
and I think it is a very good frame to think about it as like speech is a marketplace of ideas.
Mhm.
And you know, it's not just one, right? It's lots of different ones. Like Instagram is its own marketplace, this stream is its own marketplace, like, and
Mhm.
different people have access to different marketplaces. And so if you are not putting your ideas out there and battling with the bad ideas, because Holmes's whole thing was like, the government doesn't need to regulate speech because humans are smart enough where if you just let the marketplace go, you have bad ideas and good ideas, people will be able to listen to both and discern the bad ideas from the good ideas. Now, I think we need to think about that because, like, we have seen people are
Mhm.
not good at discerning, and we
Well, they're
have,
not good at discerning because like our government and our media and all of it has
Mhm.
manipulated access to information. Because when
Exactly.
people did start to see what was happening in Gaza, they said, we have a problem on TikTok. We need to start regulating TikTok, sell it to Larry Ellison, you know. And so again, it comes back to what you're saying is like we do need to have a free market of speech because when we do have all the information in front of us, we do understand what is right and wrong. But our government is like completely, I mean, in cahoots with corporations, in cahoots
Right.
with, you know,
And they put their
whatever.
thumb on the scale. And
Mhm.
we see it, I see it with my numbers. You know, I'm only on Instagram because that's the only one I could figure out how to do.
Mhm.
But like, you know, you talk about ICE, and like that
Mhm.
content goes everywhere because Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have a reason to suppress that content, right? But
Right.
like you talk about Palestine, you can't
Mhm.
say certain words. You have to say
Mhm.
my friends in Pali, like, you know, the G
Mhm.
side, like, and so you know, we do see how, and I think this is opening people up to how much of a gatekeeping role there was on media before social
Mhm.
media, right? Because
Mhm.
before
Mhm.
social media, in order to get any information out, it was going through traditional media, right? It was
Mhm.
filtered through newsrooms, and there was a benefit to that because less misinformation, right? You have vetting, you have people that are held to certain standards, but
Mhm.
also you have the interests, and we have seen how that media, specifically in the Palestine space, I mean,
Mhm.
the narrative for Palestine and Palestinians was just completely suppressed, completely one-sided, completely only the Israeli talking points. And that has shaped a generation. Like, you are never going to get my mom to be pro-Palestine. Like, she just can't,
Mhm.
And I think that goes back also to the Fox News point, is like I have tried. She's in the other room. I'm in Florida. Like, she watches Fox News 24 hours a day. Like, the hour that I can spend talking to her is not enough to deprogram all of the stuff she is. And that's what boomers do. They sit and they just watch Fox News. So, like, sadly, I think the boomers, we got to let them go. Right.
Yeah.
And we got to focus, because people are like, well, how do you change people's minds? Like, the first is, you got to figure out who you got to like get the easy fruit first. You got to see who is shiftable, and then you got to see who's not. And don't waste your time on that, because we have limited time and resources.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, my mom, my mom is the same. Like, I feel like I have had conversations where I'm like, I think she gets it. My mom is a Vietnamese refugee who is still extremely Republican, very like, when ICE killed Renee Good, I remember being like, sorry, I'm busy. I'm trying to get information out about this killing of, and she's like, well, you should be careful because she's actually a terrorist. And there's just like no way of getting through. And I'm like, literally no, and so, yeah, like with my mom, like, I won't even try. My dad, somehow, I think he like really believed that Elon Musk was going to come in and make things better. And I think he's at the point where he's like, the Epstein files, Elon, like, but it's like, because Tucker Carlson has kind of helped him.
Yes.
And I'm also like, fuck, I will never agree with Tucker Carlson overall, because he's a bad faith actor. He's just jealous of the Israeli government, because he wants America to be able to do whatever. He wants all of that money for America to do whatever America wants, But I'm like, if that's what helps some of them see a little bit of the truth. But I don't waste my time trying to argue with old people. Like, I'll just, I used to be like, no, you're wrong and you're racist.
Right.
And it's like, it's not. I love when two ignorant women feed off of each other. Thank you so much.
Is that us?
Apparently.
So, but I'd be interested to know what we're being ignorant about. Like, what is this person's position?
What do your husbands think about you being stinking Democrats? Brittany here is actually
I'm a Republican, and I'm unmarried.
I am married, and I am not a Democrat or a Republican, and my husband loves me however I am. Thank you. Hi, I have watched Tucker. I grew up watching Fox News, so yeah, sorry about that.
I used to watch Tucker. I mean, I liked Bill O'Reilly.
I had his books when I was a teenager. He came out with like books for teens at some point, and I read them. I also loved Glenn Beck.
Yes. And Glenn Beck turned for a little bit, like he turned anti-Trump during Trump 1. And I was like, there was an interesting thing that happened when Trump came to power. And there was like a group of us, like Republicans, conservatives, whatever, on the right, that saw through it immediately. Because let me tell you, Trump is not a Republican. Nothing he stands for is Republican. Like, Republicans, we like globalization. We like free trade.
Can I tell Black Diamond 6077 that I did watch his interview with Mike Huckabee? I watched the whole thing.
Yes, that was great. See, that's the thing.
It was good.
Tucker's very smart. And so he can be useful, because he can get into spaces that like a lefty person, like Huckabee's not going to sit down with a lefty person, right? With like,
because they know that they need Tucker's audience because they're losing them. You both fall for the divide of left. We literally don't. She's literally a Republican.
This is called Party Crashers. The whole point of this show is
that we don't do the party thing. Anywho, but no, I think so to all of that to say, I mean, I made a point yesterday. I really, we know all the Republicans other than Massey voted no on ending aid to Israel. So I only made a post about which Democrats voted which way, because everybody but Massey, and the Republican Party is especially not representing its base.
Yes. Well, so that's where I think we need to be like careful, is because the Democrats are shifting more than the Republicans on this issue, right?
Mhm.
And so, also the Republican shift comes at it from a different angle. It's not the it's a very nationalist angle. I don't like that angle. That is not traditional Republican angle. Like if you look at Reagan's speeches, it's about immigrants making this country better, and like we like global trade because we like commerce and trade. Like
Mhm.
so it's a very nationalist protectionist view. Like America first, we need to keep our money here. We shouldn't be in foreign wars. We shouldn't be, which it's like you can work with that, right? Because
Mhm.
it can get you to the same solution, but it's also dangerous because they're also opposed to like PEPFAR, which was like helping prevent AIDS, the spread of HIV/AIDS in Africa. You know,
Mhm.
they're also not going to want to support that. So you just have to be careful. But the thing is with the right is like if you look at polling, like the shift is much smaller. And I think that
Mhm.
is Thomas Massey was on this morning talking about this, and he said in his state, Kentucky, there is still among Republicans 70% support for the war in Iran. In
Mhm.
Oklahoma, which is even redder, it is 80% support for the war in Iran. So we can't overstate the change in the actual base on the Republican side. And Trump still has a very large hold. And there are people who will come out one day because, like my mom, who will say, I support the Iran war because Trump supports it. And then if Trump says, I don't support the Iran, you know, they just do whatever Trump does. There's a very large chunk that is just Trump sycophant cultists, right?
Mhm.
Psychologically. And so I think we see that reflected in the vote. The reason why all Republicans except Massey still voted for the aid is because the base has not shifted enough on the Republican side, and
Mhm.
especially their primary base. Like there is a
Mhm.
very like the primary base is what they are all scared about because they are in gerrymandered districts where they know they're going to beat the Democrat. What they are worried about is their primary challenger. And then they saw what happened to Thomas Massey. They
Mhm.
saw pro-Israel lobby put $30 million into that state, do AI ads showing him in a throuple with
Yeah, that
AOC.
was crazy. I did not realize
And
that
like,
they were
yeah,
putting that out there. Like, and
he's
people
literally
believed
holding
it.
hands. Yeah, my mom would believe that. Like because old people, they fall for this stuff, you know, like this is a tale as old as time, right? So like a lot of people actually believed Thomas Massey was in a sexual throuple with AOC and Ilhan Omar. And that you know, that's a whole nother issue about like money in our politics, and also like this new AI and what we are going to tolerate, right, in terms of
Mhm.
free speech. But the Republicans see that and they're like, well, Thomas Massey lost. Thomas Massey lost his primary on Israel. Israel is still big money and still a big player in Republican politics. So that's gonna take longer to unravel. What the Republicans need to do in order to get that process moving is there needs to be Republican primary candidates that take an anti-Israel, anti-genocide, anti-war, whatever their framing of it, anti-interventionist, you know, platform, and actually win. Or what is probably better in my perspective is that a leftist candidate, a progressive candidate that is anti-war beats a Republican. So I think
Mhm.
the Michigan race with Abdul Al
Mhm.
Sayed is
Mhm.
and Haley Stevens is like a perfect
Mhm.
microcosm for this because it's a very close race between a Republican and, you know, it's a purple state or whatever, right? And if Abdullah Sayed can beat the Republican, that will show that actually this left brand of progressive anti, you know, war politics can beat Republicans.
Mhm.
And so there are kind of two paths forward into changing our politics on that issue. And that's the problem is Democrats have to pick Abdullah Sayed because like
Mhm.
I think if they pick Haley Stevens, she's going to lose. Like,
Mhm. Well, that's what Michigan has showed us. They didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. They didn't want to
yeah,
vote for Kamala Harris. And so they keep arguing electability. And it is such a weak argument. I'm like, just
right.
look at what
I'm like,
happened when you did not put out, like when you
keep
pushed the
winning.
moderate candidate. It makes
Yeah.
no sense. Um, And I also think, and we can talk about like your experience lobbying, but at a time, Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush were the only ones really coming out against the genocide, and so the APAC unseated them, and
Yeah.
that was they were just the two of them. And now yesterday, for the first time, we crossed a 100 vote threshold. I think our last vote was 37 on. Yeah, so that is a massive change.
Right.
So it's like right now we saw Massey be unseated, but I would love to see somehow that it keeps growing in the same way that with the Democratic Party, it went from Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman losing their seats to now 103 Democrats voted yes to ending it, including Nancy Pelosi. Like that to me was so crazy. What have you seen when you're lobbying, you're meeting with all these members for, block the bombs or for so many different things regarding West Bank and Gaza? Over the last couple of years, how have you seen perspective shift, and what do you think has helped move them the most?
Right. So there are different kind of camps, right? To where the politician goes into, right? So like I'll use Nancy Pelosi as an example. Like, so I think there are people who have always been on the right side of this issue, right? So they're the offices that we know and love: Summerlee, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and the Progressive Caucus itself, I think, has gotten better, has gotten bigger, and gotten more confidence, right? Because the thing about Washington that I think people need to understand is everybody there is a coward. Like there are very few leaders actually in the House and the Senate, especially the House. Like think about the House. The House, you get paid like 200 grand a year. You get half your days as vacation days, literally. And you work 3 days a week. Like a lot of people just want to get in, get this cushy job, be a backbencher, and like vote with the party and not make waves on both sides, right? And then you do have some people that are ambitious and that actually want to do things, and those are the people that actually get to move where the House goes. So you have to remember, like, a lot of these people are followers and just trying to like get stuff for their district, and that's kind of what they're supposed to do. So you have people like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman that came forward, and then we saw them lose their jobs, right? I think the big change that I saw was the famine in July 2025 in Gaza. That is where I saw the biggest shift of, because again, you have to remember that people are humans. They might be pro-Israel. They are very propagandized. They really do believe that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. They are brought there. They are shown, and they are even shown Palestinians when they go there, but like, specific ones, right?
Yeah.
And they are shown this mirage to make them think these are the good guys and those are the bad guys. And that's why I hate this framing of good guy, bad guy, because if somebody is a good guy and somebody is a bad guy, then you can do whatever you want to the bad guy, right? Which is why I'm not an ends justify the means. So I think you saw a lot of it's all about cognitive dissonance and creating cognitive dissonance. And so what you saw is these people who have been supporting Israel, and that's just, they didn't even really have to think about it. They're just like, I support Israel. I see Israel in my dreams. Right? Like it's not an issue. They because they have so many issues on their plate, like so many issues. And so, and then you start seeing these pictures of, children, emaciated children in Gaza starving, while you have the Israeli government and all their officials and all their handlers and all their contacts saying, there's no famine. What are you talking about? And they're like, I am seeing a famine, and we are going in the offices. We are showing pictures. Like I had a friend in Gaza who lost his brother during the famine due to malnutrition. So I'm like, I know that's not fake, and we are sharing like personal pictures and images, and they're humans and they care about humans. And that's why you'll see a lot of them have this line of like, I support Israel's right to defend itself, because like they also don't like what happened on October 7th. They don't like the killing of civilians and the hostage taking of civilians. Like those are war crimes. And so they don't like that, but then they also don't like seeing children and people being starved in Gaza, and that is a war crime. Like you cannot use starvation as a weapon of war. And it's like there's no like excuse. Like it's like when they bomb a hospital, it's like, oh, Hamas was there. Well, there's an excuse for that. There's no excuse to starve people, right?
Well, then they tried to say Hamas was stealing all the food.
Yes, and the solution to that is then give more food, right? It like the solution to scarcity. If prices are being driven up by like a bad actor, the solution to scarcity is not more scarcity. The solution is pump food in, so so they have no power over food. But so I saw July 2025. It's just the information overcame the propaganda, right? And so you see those inflection points, and you see, and that's the thing. They need to see what the Israeli government tells them, what they're, they all have diplomatic back channels and all these types of things. What their people are telling them is false, because we are on the right side. This is a moral position. But it is a correct position. I love being a lawyer when I have the factually correct position. And so they are hearing lies from the Israel side, which they think is the truth, but then they see, but aid's not getting in. You're telling me aid's getting in, but aid's not getting in. And then it's like, okay, yes, it's Hamas. It can't be Hamas in every fucking hospital, like maybe one hospital, 30, not all 39 hospitals. No, it can't be. Right. And so they just went way too far, where it kind of broke through. And then you have people who came out on this issue, like Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is not somebody who's like, before this was like a Summer Lee or, Rashida Tlaib. Like I think he's just doing his own thing, right? Like he was progressive, but progressive in kind of like the mainstream progressive way, and not a big foreign policy guy. And I saw him in July 2025 at an event at Busboys and Poets, which is kind of like this big space where we have a lot of events with politicians and stuff. And I told him about my friend who was, because I was doing a lot of like on the ground work at that time. One of the families that we raised money for was murdered at the aid site, like that day, like the day before. And I said, I was like, I asked a question, and one of the things, and I was like, I need to tell you about my friend. Like, you have these GHF aid sites where people are being murdered, and like my friend was just killed yesterday at one of these aid sites, and like, you are a congressperson, you need to do something about this. He had no clue, like, just because like it wasn't on his radar, because people just have this automation of American government good. Like, we're going in to provide the aid. Of course, we're not killing them. Of course, we're not aiding and abetting killing them. And so, he started taking like very outfront positions on Gaza, and you start seeing members taking these positions and then getting support. And that's why it's so important for us to give these members support and to rally around them and not tear the ones down that are leading because they haven't gone far enough yet, because that disincentivizes other people from coming out, right? And so, like I said, most of them are followers. They need to see somebody lead, go out first, take all the bullets, and then if they get praised, more people will follow, right? And so, and then this primary season, I think that's been like kind of the second big thing, is that they have seen how well the left insurgent candidates, and I hate using all of these words because it is all framing on their terms, and we need to frame on our terms, but they are seeing how, Kamala Harris lost. That was a big thing. They all thought they had like, they could make this about Trump, and it wasn't. And Kamala Harris lost. I don't know if it's solely from Gaza, but they keep downplaying the role of Gaza and the importance of Gaza. You're telling me she didn't fucking lose Michigan because of Gaza, because of Dearborn? Right. Are you, So,
or they blame Dearborn and say it's because you guys were anti-Black or you guys were racist. Yeah,
exactly. Which is horrible. And we saw that in the Senate primary between Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico. Like people, like if you criticize Jasmine Crockett, you were a misogynoirist, right? And it's like, no.
And there was plenty of that too. I don't want to downplay that, like a lot
Right.
of racism is happening. And also there are valid critiques of like, well,
Right.
people care about this issue.
Regardless.
Regardless.
And you know, people want to split hairs about, well, because James Tallarico isn't like an amazing progressive on this issue, but he's better than Crockett, and he takes less of the money that Crockett does, the less of that type of money. So,
but I will say
I'm
she also voted yes on yesterday's bill, which was a big deal for her to move. So it's like we do see that these people are moving because they see that it makes a difference.
Exactly.
There's like no denying it at this point.
And that is why I get so frustrated when people are like, we can't vote our way out of this. I mean, the amazing privilege that we have in this country is that we can vote our way out of this. In other countries, they can't vote their way out. Maybe they have to do violent revolution. And I think violent revolution, one, it's the most costly option, right? Violence is the most costly option. So like you want to avoid that at all costs. But like why would you throw away your voice and your vote and just be like, we can't vote our way out of this? Newsflash,
it's like
the
an
only
and thing. To me, it's an and thing. It's we have to vote because that is such an easy fucking lever to pull. We have the right to vote,
So
fucking
easy.
use it. And also, it's not enough because we do need to be organizing and building power and organizing our communities and making sure people are getting the right information and getting more people to get plugged in and involved. Like voting doesn't take away, like does not.
Right. But I consider that all part of the electoralism. Like our country was set up for us to be very involved in our democracy. And I think for a very long time, people have checked out of the democracy part because it's work. It is work, but like it's good work. It's like the work that it is a privilege to be able to be a citizen in a country and have a say. And like, you know, so it's like, yeah, if you just go out and vote every 4 years for the R or the D, no, that's not the thing. Yeah, you have to be in your community, building power, building support. And that's what we've seen these left candidates do. And it is showing these members of Congress, like a lot of them who are, you know, more on the centrist. You know, I can think of Caston in Illinois. He had a primary challenger from the left. He survived his primary, but he has still moved. Valerie Foushee is an amazing example of this. So Valerie Foushee is in North Carolina. She had a primary challenger a few years ago, Nida Alam. I think it was 2022 that she won, and she won on AIPAC money on that primary. But during this whole cycle, like last year's cycle,
she was like
moved
so close to losing. She was so close to losing.
Yes.
Like so close. And so yes, she has moved. She's been like one of the like very outspoken suddenly because she's like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose. Like it is not even worth it to die on this hill anymore.
Right. But I also think because this is the moral position, and I do want to see this, and this is why I'm, you know, personally disappointed by the Congressional Black Caucus specifically, because they have been through this issue. And they are one of the worst. They went through this with the civil rights era and apartheid South Africa, and they are some of the worst on this issue. Where it's like, you know, this intimately. Like when Ta-Nehisi Coates went to the West Bank, he was like, "This is the Jim Crow South." He's like, I knew it right away. And so, but Valerie Foushee, the good thing about her is like, I think she is not just moved for politics. I think she has actually moved personally, right? Like she moved because of the politics, but now she gets to be on the right side of genocide. And I think it is now a consistent position for her. We don't have to worry about her moving back when the primary challenge is off, because you always have to be aware, cognizant of that risk, right? Like Ro Khanna. I don't know that he moved for his morals to begin with. He might have moved for politics to begin with, but I don't think he's a cynical political actor. I think now he has taken this issue and he feels it in his conscience now, right?
I want to address a comment in here because I do think this is important. Leftist white women hate the Black Caucus because they aren't leftist.
I hate this racialization of things.
Well, I want to be very, like, I think there's so much, I don't hate the Black Caucus. I think that one thing that people, and I also don't like having this conversation without like another Black person here. So
Right.
I think Blue is in
Exactly.
here. If Blue, you want to chime in, please correct me. Feel free. Blue knows me. The thing about the Black Caucus, or the issue has nothing to do with even like to say that it has to do with APAC or it has to do with, you know, the Black Caucus not being leftist enough. The issue to me just comes down to inequity, because if you understand the relationship that a lot of funders, philanthropists have with Black communities, or if you understand that, like, for a long time, synagogues kept the lights on in Black churches, there is like a relationship built because of philanthropy, because of you know, like I said, synagogues keeping the lights on. And because of that, there is going to be a little bit of more loyalty, because it's like, okay, these are people who helped with programs in my community. And because these programs were beneficial to my community, like, there are concessions you have to, if we did not have inequity in the first place, it wouldn't be an issue.
Right.
And so the system itself maintains inequity because it wants to be able to keep control of people that it brings up into it. So it's like, and I'm not saying this very like
No,
coherently.
I think that's right, because that is like the disadvantage that the system creates, because the Black churches should not have to rely on anybody to keep their lights on, right?
Exactly.
And
Right.
because they did, now
And
they have
philanthropy,
this
you shouldn't
beautiful-
rely on philanthropy dollars to get funding into your community. Your community should
Exactly.
be fucking funded. So I don't blame people who like have to make concessions to try to make sure that their community is taken care of. And so to me, like, I am not going to single out the Black Caucus as like a specific issue when I know the root cause issue is like inequity in America, racism in America, a lot of things in America that has designed a system where it's like, okay, if we're going to make the conditions that we bring you up and that we are going to keep investing in your community, you're going to have some loyalty to us too. So like, I don't think that's an issue of the Black Caucus. I think that is an America issue. And I just, so it's like, to me, it's like, it's not my place. I do not understand what it is like to have had, okay, Blue, politics affect the Black community far deeper than in most communities. And so the Black politicians know they have to negotiate with the white supremacist power structure to get the bare minimum to survive. So it's like, I understand that. It's like, is the Black Caucus the most progressive? No. Do I wish it was more progressive? Yeah. And also, I don't blame them because of this structure specifically. You have to make so many more negotiations to get resources to your community.
Right. And what I would say on the previous comment, because this is how I think internet discourse gets flattened. And I know this person is just trying to write a comment, quickly, but it's like, they said the word hate. I didn't say hate. I said disappointed. That's a very different, qualification. Like, I don't hate the Congressional Black Caucus. And also, because they're not progressive enough. Again, I'm a conservative. I don't care whether they are progressive or not. I am talking about this one issue. And this one issue is apartheid and genocide. And the reason why I do single out the Congressional Black Caucus is because they uniquely know what this issue is. They have the history of slavery. I think one of the worst genocides perpetuated in the history. I mean, it was a 400-year genocide, right? They know apartheid, right? They lived in segregation. They lived in Jim Crow South. Like, so they know this issue. And the people will push back and say, I think the comment kind of goes in this direction of like, they have their own problems. They are dealing with their own shit, and like, they are systemically oppressed in this country. So they are just fighting to get what they need. But like, I don't know. I'm just like, this, and it's not like, okay, you have to fight for the Palestinians and you have to fight for them. Okay, you have too much on your plate, but but don't support the oppressor, And I think Ta-Nehisi Coates has a lot of really good discourse. So I would point people to like every interview he's ever done, because like, if I quote Ta-Nehisi Coates for all of this stuff, that's what I would do, because he's really thoughtful on this issue. And obviously he knows it much more intimately than I do. But it's just like, and I understand why they side with the oppressor, because the APAC is the one giving them the dollars that's putting them in positions of power so they can bring things back to their district. And that goes to like the structural component that we have to like break, right? Because that is, you should not have a community in the United States reliant on, you know, the benevolence, the philanthropy of like a foreign power to get what they need.
Yeah. Okay. Brittany is right. They have the most moral and historical responsibility to fight all forms of oppression and colonialism. And this is where like I don't know the burden and the weight. So I don't feel like they should or they shouldn't. I'm like, okay, like to me it's like I would rather, you know, like I'll vote whichever way. Like I do not know what it's like to have to choose between am I not going to be able to get resources into my community, or am I like I don't know what that's like.
Right.
So to me it's like I don't have a strong like
I will say this from the legislative side, because this is you know what animates and motivates my understanding of things, right? I am a very like analytical type, like less emotional person, right? So I just see like how do we get to the thing that we want, right? And the thing that I see a lot in Congress is that like Black churches, Black communities have a lot of political power in the halls of Congress. I have sat with members and their staff, and when I ask them, I say, well, what could move you on this issue? And they don't say we need more Black churches, but like they will say we need faith communities. And you know their district, and you know and you know that means the Black churches. And so I am just looking at this as a math problem, and I'm like, I need Black churches, you know, like I don't know how to get Black churches, but like they're telling me that I need them on this issue, and that's a missing puzzle piece that we need. And so and so that's why I go back to like the civil rights, like they have organized, like they have done this, like they have the institutional knowledge, and I'm like, I want your help, like, you know. And that's the thing, if we need to like be the one, like I don't want to step in and be the white savior, but like if we are the ones that need to step in and put their lights on and give them the resources, like in order to get their help, like I'm like, then that's what we need to do, you know. But like I want to have this conversation of like, because I think everybody wants to be on the right side of history. I think everybody wants to fight oppression, right? And so they shouldn't be put in that position of having to choose. How do we get them out of that position, right?
So paying for votes. Okay, buddy. I put them in timeout.
Uh-oh.
Anyways, okay. All of that, yes. And back to the conversation of the votes yesterday.
Yes.
I'm going to pull up some of the yes votes. I know you sent me a statement as well. Here, let me pull up what you sent me.
I don't know if I can send you this because it's my email. So one of the things that I do, because basically, you know, I'm a lawyer and I specialize in argument. And going back to like our discussion of like listening to the other side, you have to listen to people who disagree with you. Like when we are doing a brief, you have to read the other side's brief in order to respond to it. If you don't listen to the opposition, then you don't know how to respond, right? So I am signed up for APAC. I am signed up for all of these emails, you know, that are on the other side of this issue. So they tell me what their arguments are, and they're basically giving me a blueprint of how I can, you know, work against them. And so I got an email from Jewish Insider Daily, and they had a statement, which I think was really like illustrative. And, you know, it said more than 100 House Democrats, just under half the party's caucus. It was 103 to 98. And there were like 10 who voted present and 4 who didn't vote, voted to cut off all U.S. aid to Israel, marking another flashpoint in the party's growing disillusionment with the Jewish state. Obviously, this is a pro-Israel audience, so it's written with a pro-Israel slant. It's a result that would have been almost unimaginable even a year ago. I think that is such an important sentence. This is the opposition saying that this result would have been unimaginable a year ago. Like, Congress does not move this quickly on anything. Like, and so I think that we need to take this, like, going back to the electoralism, like, when we work, we can get things done, you know, and the other side is seeing it. And so they say that the fact that a number of the anti-Israel votes included several longtime pro-Israel Democrats, like Reps Auchincloss, Glenn Ivey, Maggie Goodlander, Pat Ryan, is a sign that even some members in the mainstream wing of the party are running scared of a potential primary threat from the left. And whether, I don't know if that's the only reason. Yes, a primary challenge from the left, but Glenn Ivey easily won his primary challenger from the left. It's that, but it's also the base. It's also the organizing. It's also just seeing the way that the political wins, and it's also Israel's actions, right? And then they talk about the Senate votes on the JRDs, where we got 40 Democrats, which was, you know, historic, unprecedented, voting to stop certain weapon sales to Israel. And voting for the equivalent of a wrecking ball to the U.S.-Israel relationship. Like, they are characterizing this as a wrecking ball to the U.S.-Israel relationship. And obviously they're trying to gin up their base as well. It says, an amendment that even vocal critics of Israel described as flawed and calculated political stunt by Republicans, and we can talk about that, is no longer a non-starter for congressional Democrats. And then it says, with a more carefully crafted amendments, you could have got even more support. So there were people said there were issues with this amendment. Those issues were overstated, but if you did have a more crafted, there was like $6 million in other programs. It was like 1% of the money goes to like non-weapons. If you had said $3.2 billion weapons, you know, like, you would have gotten more support on that. And then they say it is notable that nearly all of the Democrats in swing districts or running in closely watched battleground Senate races stood by their support of Israel and voted against the amendment. So that's
like Haley Stevens.
That's the direction that we need to start pushing in. That's where they see their strongest ground, is like, well, we are still shored up in the swing districts, in the battlegrounds. And that's what I was talking about earlier with Stevens and Abdul Assad. We need to show politically, because this is all a political game, that left anti-Israel candidates can beat Republicans, because that is the thing that they always argue on in the mainstream, on the left and the right, is that mainstream corporate centrist Democrats are the only ones that can win in red districts, right? You can win in the commie corridor and the blue districts, but your socialist, leftist, whatever candidate cannot win in a red place. And we need to show them that they can. And that will be the political earthquake, I think.
Yeah. I think, you know, the Jeffries came out basically stating he would be voting no because they say it was very extreme. I think, as you said, it's overstated. It had no impact on the Iron Dome. It had no impact on like the embassy security.
Exactly.
And so it's not like it was like no security left. Like, the Iron Dome is still a lot of fucking security.
Iron Dome, David's sling arrow thing, whatever those things are. It was only the 3.3 billion in the foreign military funding that they used to buy weapons. And then there were like 2 other small programs. A new policy came out with like an FAQ debunking brief on this. But one of them, there's like 5 million or something for a program in Africa, like a humanitarian aid program in Africa with Israel. And then there was, which is, you know, if you want to get into like the lefty conspiracy theory, it's a front to use aid for political leverage in Africa, right? You know, like, I am pro humanitarian assistance, but we do need to recognize that it is or can be used as political leverage. And I am against that. You know, you should not use aid as a weapon, as like we were just discussing in the United States. And then the other program was something about refugee resettlement in Israel. And I'm like, is it Jewish refugees? Is it Palestinian
Yeah.
refugees? Is it other refugees? But it's a very small program. And the answer to that, and this is why it's disingenuous, because they know the procedures more than we know the procedures. Any one of them could have offered an amendment. So they could have voted for Massey's amendment. And then any one of them could have offered another amendment that says, but we will keep this specific program in place.
But
we authorize $5 million to fund the Africa initiative or the refugee resettle. So there are solutions to their things, but they just want to kind of cynically, disingenuously say it's too broad, so I don't have to make a tough decision.
Yeah, I think that's what's it's so fresh to see Jeffries his statement that like this will impact our ability to fight terrorism when like we're the ones funding the terrorism. So like don't all of these groups popped up also because of what we have done in the Middle East, and like we put weapons in the hands of more ISIS fighters easily, by far. It is fact. Like a lot of this is because of us. A lot of the things that we claim are threats to us happen because of us, whether people having to escape from Venezuela. A lot of that was because of our destabilizing of the government. People having to escape from Cuba, Haiti. We have fucked with so many countries for our own benefit. And then we say, what the fuck are you doing here? Or why the fuck do you have guns? Or why are you trying, because we gave them guns, because because we put drugs into, the war on drugs. A lot of that was our drugs. It's, and so that part, I'm like, can we please be fucking for real?
And it's both sides that have done this, and this is why we're party crashers. This is not a Republican, the foreign policy of both Republicans and Democrats since World War II has been atrocious, and it is a uniparty, DC foreign policy blob problem, and that is one of the things we have to cut through. We have to get new members in, and they have to get new staff. Because if they come in and they get the same staff, I talked to some of these national policy staffers, and they're just so foreign policy DC brained. They've been in the blob establishment for 40 years, and they think that they know everything, and they don't.
I'm pulling up Greg Kassar's letter because I don't think it got enough attention. It came out after Jeffries said that he would not be voting. And then,
and while you do that, one thing that I will point out is the Pelosi, and we can look at her statement too, but there are some pro-Israel Democrats that I think voted for the 3.3 billion, voted to slash the funding, not because they are now anti-Israel, but because they want to influence Israeli politics. Benjamin Netanyahu, they have to have an election by October, right? Or they have blown up their constitution, and he is trying. He has done some things which some Israeli commentators have called a coup, right? At this point, Benjamin Netanyahu is hanging on for his dear life, because if he loses power, it is likely he will go to jail for corruption. It is likely he will go to jail there will be investigations about October 7th, about the failures of Israel on that day and the war crimes committed since, and he will be held accountable to that, because the Israeli society, I think it hasn't happened yet, but when it happens, it will switch all at once. And so the Democrats who are pro-Israel in the United States, they want to push Israeli society to get Benjamin Netanyahu out. I don't think it's just a Benjamin Netanyahu problem, because I've seen the statements of the other ministers. They are just as genocidal. They are just as, ethno-nationalist supremacist. But they think if they get Netanyahu out and they get a new leader in, they can say, okay, everything's good. It was just Netanyahu. It wasn't Israel. We can go back to business as usual. I don't think we're going back to business as usual, but that's their motivation. So it's important to understand, some of the motivations. It's not all, oh, wow, they're anti-Israel and they're pro-Palestine now, or they're anti-genocide, or they've seen the light,
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. And at this point, harm reduction, I will take whatever and then they can see that it's not, the issue's not Benjamin Netanyahu. This issue has been since the fucking conception of the colonial settler state. But
Yes.
after Jeffries said he will not be voting on this, Greg Casar, who is the chair of the Progressive Caucus, love him, he's great. He came out with this, which is a pretty bold move because the Progressive Caucus, although it's the largest congressional caucus, it doesn't have a ton of political capital. It doesn't have the kind of funding that the other caucuses have. It doesn't have the kind of, communications infrastructure, like influencers and stuff. But he said, "Dear colleagues, I'm writing to explain why I will vote yes on Rep. Thomas Massey's Amendment 8 to the National Security Department State-Related Programs Appropriations Act. I am proud that the Progressive Caucus has endorsed Block the Bombs to cut off weapons the Israeli military uses to kill civilians in Gaza, and I believe a yes vote is most consistent with that position. I understand that many people have good faith concerns that this amendment would impact non-military funding. I want to be clear about the facts here. This amendment would block $3.3 billion in offensive military aid and about $50 million in non-military funding. In other words, 98.5% of the funding is for the military. While I wish we could vote on an amendment targeted to just military aid and, of course, support humanitarian programs, we do not have that option. The American people are crying out for an end to U.S. tax dollars subsidizing Israel's military at a time when millions are struggling to make ends meet. We are sending billions of dollars to a military that has killed tens of thousands of civilians in Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon, destabilized the region, and helped lead us into war with Iran. Over the weekend, the Israeli military detained a member of Congress attempting to conduct oversight in the West Bank. We cannot continue to subsidize this. I am aware House Democratic leadership has a different position on this amendment. I appreciate that they have facilitated open conversations on this issue and avoid whipping a no vote. I respect their leadership. At its best, the Progressive Caucus's role is to be an independent voice and lead on important issues of peace and human rights. After the Israeli government has killed more than 70,000 people in Gaza and helps lead the United States into a destabilizing, deadly war with Iran, we are called to act. The Democratic Party needs a new approach to Israel and Palestine. When Democrats retake the majority in November, I hope the Progressive Caucus can help lead our party towards a position that secures safety, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinian and Israeli civilians alike. I hope you'll join me in beginning that process by voting yes on this amendment." And I think that was a really well done letter. In contrast, Pelosi's statement, I think, is more of what you'll see, like the mainstream Dems who were surprised. Like, their framing is very much the Netanyahu government, but I will take it. Like, I will take it.
Right, and I think this is evidence of, like, when they make statements, there's always like a political calculation, and it's like, who are they making this statement to? And we see this a lot with Netanyahu. When he makes an English statement, that is a statement to the American people. And so this statement, is a call out of Netanyahu. And I think this is part of the push that I've seen for politicians trying to influence the Israeli election, saying like, hey, if you keep Netanyahu in power, we're going to cut you off. Like, and so this is part of them using their political leverage on Israel to influence, that country's politics. I don't know if it'll work. Like, I don't know enough about internal Israeli politics. Like, things seem to be turning on Netanyahu, but Netanyahu is very calculating and smart political operator. And like I said, this is existential for him, for his actual life, because he did also do corruption, allegedly, with cigars, allegedly, and other things.
He's also a war criminal.
He is also a war criminal.
Yes. So hers is, today, the Massey Amendment presents an unfortunate choice to the House. As one who is committed to a strong U.S.-Israel relationship and supportive of a two-state solution, I respect Leader Jeffries' decisive proposals to achieve a just and lasting peace in the Middle East. For the good of the Israeli people and the Palestinian people, it is clear that U.S. policy must change to attain that goal. The United States must be a force for security and stability. The American people are rightly demanding an end to the perpetual cycle of war, and the Netanyahu government cannot maintain its current course. Therefore, while this amendment is ill-conceived, I vote yes for the message that it sends. And it is very much a message that she's trying to send, which is, again, like, she's trying to say, this isn't about me being anti-Israel, because she's not. She's still a Zionist. But it is her recognizing that we cannot continue to send unconditional aid to a government committing war crimes, a genocidal government committing war crimes. And like I said, I was so surprised to see her on the list of yes votes. I will take this if that means we are not going to send, hopefully soon, eventually stop sending bombs to be used on children and people in general. It doesn't even have to just be children.
Yes,
And
20-year-old men should also not be bombed.
right. Like, but yeah, I mean, there were a lot came out. I think the debates were also really good. Maybe we should just watch the debates. Here, let's watch the debates. Why not?
And I think one point that I really want to bring out is that this is about us giving them money. This has nothing to do with us not selling them weapons. This has nothing to do with us sanctioning them or blocking weapon sales. This is literally about who pays the bills for the weapons. And, you know, like, and so that, you know, that's kind of more of the Republican, I think, talking point. But it's like, if we didn't give them this money, they could still have access to all of the weapons, right? This doesn't even touch that. And so it shows where we are. This is the first step of like, we're not paying for it anymore, which is like Israel as a socialist country. Israel is a socialist country. They have far more benefits for their citizens, which is really funny coming from like the Christian, right? I'm like, you know, they have free abortion on demand. Like, at every part of the process, like literally, like that you just go to your medical provider and the doctor figures it out.
We need to start pushing that information out. Like
we really do. But I mean, they have so many social safety nets, like 15 weeks paid parental leave. They have free healthcare. They have and then we don't, and they tell us that it's why, like if they can afford. If we have to lose that in order to fund our own military, $1 trillion military, why do they get to have that and have our military funded? Right. Why are we subsidizing their
when we don't even have those things? Okay, I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play it at like 0.2 speed so that it is not too slow. But I think these were like really well done. I love Castro.
Castro was good. Massey had a lot of amazing points, especially his point about the veterans. We'll hear.
Chair, my amendment is simple. It strikes $3.3 billion of foreign aid to the country of Israel from the State Department funding bill. You know, we've got $39.4 trillion of debt. We've got needs at home, which include our infrastructure, our roads and bridges. We've got a shortfall in that fund. We've got our locks and dams that we're perpetually trying to figure out new funding mechanisms to come up with. And we've got homeless veterans. And we're sending more money to Israel in this bill than we spend on homeless veterans in this country. Just to put it in perspective, there are 3,000 counties in this country. And if you divide that into $3 billion, that's $1 million from every county. This is not a significant amount of money that is going overseas. So I think we should stop it. We should put them on a diet. They're the biggest welfare recipient of the United States and have been for many years. $310 billion has been received by Israel from the taxpayers of the United States. That's in inflation-adjusted dollars since we've been giving them money. And that's why I think this amendment is important, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Chairman, I rise to claim time in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
And is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As chairman of this subcommittee since 2023, I'm proud to be a leader in this body in providing unwavering support to our friend and ally, Israel, especially after the October 7th terrorist attack. The $3.3 billion in foreign military financing for Israel included in this bill supports our national security interests overseas. You see, the same terrorists and terrorist entities that threaten Israel also threaten the United States and our people directly. You see, when we give Israel the tools and capabilities to eliminate these terrorist threats and to protect our homeland, by the way, including the many Americans who visit and live there, we are making America and the American people safer. The United States and Israel have worked together on successful military operations, like those of the past year to decimate Iran's nuclear program and missile capabilities. And Israel is also using the overwhelming majority of this funding to actually purchase American-made weaponry.
So, who profits from American-made weaponry? Not me.
Right.
Not the American people. Fuck you.
Right.
But actually helps our defense industrial base and our economy. And we've worked together extensively on developing military capabilities and other capabilities. Because of these advancements for our mutual interest and for our mutual security, there's currently a discussion, frankly, of moving to a new security partnership with Israel after the fiscal year 2028.
Republican.
Just to be clear, the assistance in this bill for fiscal year 2027 is under the terms of the existing MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, which runs for 2 more fiscal years. This does not in any way prejudge the outcome of ongoing negotiations. This is about fulfilling our commitment to one of our closest and most important allies that we have in the entire world at a time when terrorists are butchering people around the world. And we made that commitment because it makes the American people, our country, stronger. So I urge defeat of the amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
You
How
pause
does
it
it
for a
make us
second.
stronger? Yes, I did.
Right.
pause it.
So like I wanted to point out a few things like argumentatively that he's doing that we should pick up on. So the biggest framing is the terrorist framing, and that is what has worked for them. It worked on me in 2000, 2001 when, we had a large terrorist attack in the US. And that has, that has framed, the Israel Palestinian, issue for like my mom's generation, because the 70s and the 80s were really bad with a bunch of terrorist attacks. I don't like to use the word terrorist because I think it's not useful, but I'll say, attacks on civilians, right? Which attacks on civilians are a war crime. They're illegal under international and domestic law. You shouldn't attack civilians. It's also ineffective. But that framing is still very powerful. So that is one thing and that's probably the hardest thing, but that is the thing we need to dismantle. We need to dismantle this war on terror framing. We need to humanize Palestinians. We need to humanize people in the Middle East. We need to humanize Iranians. They don't help their case when they shout death to America in the streets. But at the same time, like when I have had this conversation with like very Christian evangelical right Zionist people, and I'm like, well, we've been bombing them for 20 years. I mean, like you would hate somebody too, right? If they were bombing you for 20 years. So, you just have to humanize it, right? You're not, the facts are not always going to be amazing. But so that's the terrorism framing, but also it's like at the time when the terrorist threat is at its highest, like,
Is it?
Is it? Like,
Because I thought the Pentagon said that Israel is the highest threat of spying on us right now.
of spying on us. But also like, and that's where you get the cognitive dissonance, and you can ask people like, do you really think the biggest threat in your life right now is terrorism, or is it affording groceries? Is it going into medical debt because you have a health issue? I think for most Americans, it's the healthcare piece, right? It's not the terrorism threat. Like, you can have an attack, at any time, and God forbid, like, I hope they're smart enough not to, but like we haven't had a major event in the United States since what 2001, right? I mean, there have been attacks in Europe and whatnot, but it's just like, it is not something that is like facing the Americans every day. So when he says that we need to emphasize that those words fall hollow, because it's not, right? And the kind of I don't know what the word is, but basically like what he's doing is saying this is protecting Americans, like you said at the end, but it's not. This is protecting Israelis. Like, you can have allies, you can protect allies, but let's be honest about what it is. The whole and so the second thing he brings up is the war in Iran, and he's obviously very pro the war in Iran, and we've decimated, a year ago we decimated their nuclear infrastructure, so it was completely obliterated. So then we had to go, good Lord. I don't know what that means, but thank you. But then we had to go in again because we decimated it so good that a year later we had to go decimate it again. I mean, like, come on. But the hostilities against Iran is not a threat to the United States. They don't have missile capabilities that can even get here. And they had a religious fatwa against building nuclear weapons. Like, the guy that ran Iran is like the Pope. If the Pope says to Catholics, we're not building nuclear weapons, we're not building nuclear weapons. Like, they're very religious people. And but it was a threat to Israel, and it was a threat to Israel's hegemonic dominance in the region. So we went to war in Iran. This is well covered for Israel, right? And the third thing that he says is what you pointed out with the military industrial complex. And I think it is very important, because we have been sold this lie by the defense companies for decades. It is very important to point out that, like, numerous studies have shown, when a government invests in certain sectors of the economy, when a government uses taxpayer money to invest in the economy and sectors, it can have a multiplier effect. If you invest in education, if you educate your population, you will return dividends on that investment. It's like every dollar spent on education can yield $4 back in return. Defense is the worst one. the investment we make in defense does not give any money back. It's literally
Mhm.
just sucked up by these defense contractors. It has some jobs, it produces limited jobs, and it's really just them making all of these toys that actually don't even work, and we don't even need them anymore. So like the whole defense industrial base argument is another one that we need to be constantly like tearing apart, because it is a waste of money. Like you said, $1 trillion budget. It is a black fucking hole over in the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I pulled up Costs of War, which is a project at Brown University. They're great. Definitely recommend them as a resource. But weapon makers spent $2.5 billion on lobbying over the last 2 decades, employing on average 700 lobbyists per year over the last 5 years. That money that they're taking is being spent to make sure that they make more money. It is not helpful to anyone in any way. And as you mentioned as well, there is a lot of, the environmental costs, social and political, but it does also hurt. What were the numbers? I know that there's numbers in here somewhere where it's like every dollar spent there, instead of, like, it does not create more jobs than teachers. It doesn't create more jobs. Like if we were to put that, it would make more teachers better funded. There are teachers who have multiple jobs. Like it's so frustrating. Okay, I'm gonna play this again, or continue to play.
Gentlemen reserves.
Yeah, because we have some more interesting ones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I heard a common refrain in my colleagues' arguments there that, oh, don't worry, all this money is going to the military industrial complex. Well, I've got a problem with that. That's not a sustainable economy. Buying weapons and letting people use them overseas on other people, particularly oftentimes innocent civilians. And I'm not compelled by the argument that our job is to be here and enrich the military industrial complex, now called the Defense Industrial Base. With that, I would like to yield 2 minutes to my friend and colleague, Mr. Castro from Texas.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, Israel does not need, and quite honestly, does not deserve more American money for weapons. Prime Minister Netanyahu has taken Israel down an ugly path. The tragedy of October 7th has become a justification for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Self-defense does not include indiscriminately bombing homes, hospitals, churches, schools, or refugee camps. There were even credible reports of children intentionally shot in the head and chest. For decades, our nation gave Israel billions to facilitate peace and a two-state solution. Instead, Israel has chosen more war and more occupation. Today, it occupies not only Gaza and the West Bank, but parts of Syria and Lebanon. If there are no consequences, why in the world would Benjamin Netanyahu change what he's doing? And words are not enough. Condemnations are not enough. If we hope to change Israel's behavior, we must use our leverage. The American people have seen this tragedy with their own eyes. They have made their judgment. They do not support giving Israel more weapons. Do not reward a wrongdoer. Now it's up to us in this chamber to take action. I support this amendment, and I yield back.
I now recognize the gentleman from Kentucky.
Mayor inquires how much time I have remaining.
The gentleman has 1.5 minutes remaining.
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I yield to the distinguished ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentleman from Florida, Ms. Franklin, for 1 minute.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Should I yield? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in very strong opposition to this amendment. Maintaining stability in the Middle East has long been a vital United States strategic interest, and what happens there affects our economy, our national security, the safety of our American service members. And as written, this amendment is overbroad in that it prohibits or could limit the use of funds for long-standing initiatives related to peace building, refugee settlement, and U.S. embassy operations. And this amendment would restrict our country's ability to confront Iran's proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorist organizations in the region who are sworn enemies of the United States, Israel, and our allies. A 10-minute debate is not the way to change policy as we have a mission of peace and prosperity, both for Israelis and Palestinians, and peace in the region. Yield back.
This isn't a 10-minute debate, because this is something we've been talking about for how fucking long? Like, even to reduce this to a 10-minute debate, as if this has not been something that has been front of mind for people for a long time. It's so intellectually lazy. I don't see how sending more bombs creates any peace, and I definitely don't think they are creating any stability for the region. So it's like,
Right.
you're just gaslighting us.
This is an interesting member. This is Lois Frankel. She's from South Florida somewhere, very, I think, Jewish district. I've been in her office before. And, she's very pro-Israel. The good thing about these types of members is they have like direct lines. So if you need to get something into Gaza, like they can help with behind the scenes stuff, like with Mohammed Ibrahim. Like, I think it was the pro-Israel people who eventually put the pressure on to get him out, But it's just, I mean, she's old, right? Like, this is why we need turnover and term limits. Like, her ideas are old, her vision of Israel, like, I'm sure, like, I'm pretty sure she's Jewish, like, and older Jewish people have a much closer connection to the Holocaust, and so they feel that insecurity, and they think that Israel is like their magic security blanket that will protect them from all harms. And it's a very emotional, like, psychological thing that you have to understand. But it's like, these people need to step aside. We need new people that can respond to the situation of today. Like, when I talk to people who are, either liberal Zionist or Zionist, and I say, we don't have to have a debate about whether Israel was good or bad. Who are they today? Do you support who they are as a state today, what they are doing, right? Let's at least address, like, when you're bleeding, you stop the bleeding first, and then you address the whole situation. So, like, let's stop the bleeding, let's like address the genocide, the apartheid, the war crimes, and then we can go to the bigger picture right now. Because there are people, like I said, like, I know people in Gaza, like, there are people in Gaza who've been living in fucking tents for 3 years. Like, no, just the rats in the tents, like, wind, rain, like, when it's freezing, nowhere to warm up, when it's hot, nowhere to cool down, like, with no good food, no fresh food, like, going through periods of famine. I mean, it's living with all this military waste around them. I mean, the rates of cancer, like, the rates of birth defects are increased. Like, this is an imminent situation for the people living there right now, and this kind of framing is just, like, so out of touch.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like, we have to. So many people are like, they won't even work with liberal Zionists at all, and I'm like, we just need numbers right now. This is an emergency situation. If the bombs stop, the people in Gaza are not going to say, did you have to work with liberal Zionists to make it happen?
Right.
Like, we have to get over ourselves on the ideological.
I have asked, like, my friends in Gaza, when we have, like, time for conversations, I'm like, so do you guys talk about, like, 1 state or 2 state solutions? They're like, fuck no. They're like, we just want to stop being bombed. Like they honestly, like, do not care. Like, this offended a lot of, like, people in the pro-Palestinian movement, that, like, my chats that I'm in, but, like, my friend said, like, I don't care if UAE governs us, because, like, you have to understand how low they are in their lives. Like, they're like, we don't care if we are governed by a foreign power, just make it stop, and they were like, how can you say UAE? And UAE is fucking terrible. I agree with you. That is the point. Like, that is the point. Like, and obviously that's just one person saying something. That's not like, there's not a poll in Gaza right now saying, but it's just an illustration of, like, the desperation and where they're at. Like, they don't have the privilege of being like, I only want a 1 state solution right now, like, that is not where they are.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And we add more barriers to ourselves when we get into those things, when, like, we have to address the emergency. It's like, we don't have the luxury of debating history and politics and philosophy. Like, we just don't. And that's not to say we can't with people who are already more like-minded, already, like, yes, that's fine. But, like, if we're going to move people to stop the fucking bombing, we need to learn when to shut up. Okay. Yeah. Gonna play this, and I need to find my vape.
The gentleman gets back. Gentleman from Florida.
I would like now to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Hoyer.
Gentleman from Florida. Alan? You're recognized.
Ask unanimous consent to revise and extend. Madam Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this amendment, which would dangerously undermine American national security. If adopted, it would, as Leader Jeffries rightly pointed out, limit our ability to confront terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah that expressly target American citizens and military personnel. And it would make it harder for America to use our relationships with Israel and regional partners to promote a negotiated 2-state settlement. The only realistic path to deliver on the promise of peace, security, and self-determination for both Israel and Palestine. I understand the frustration that many members feel some of the policies and actions of the current Israeli government, as well as their concerns about its commitment to the peace process and a 2-state solution. However, this amendment would embolden the enemies of peace, those pursuing the complete elimination of Israel, and those who seek the death of Jews. It is a vote to weaken our ability to engage in the region, and it's a vote against American security, against American interest, and against American safety. Vote no.
The gentleman, I now recognize the gentleman from Florida.
Yeah, and like those two were just Democrats, right? So it's like if you have Democrats voting with Republicans, like the guy who is has the time is the Republican, and he's letting the Democrats speak. So it's like, what is the point of being a Democrat when you're voting and supporting, the Republicans on this issue, obviously. But like, you see how he conflates American and Israeli interests. It's not protecting the American. Like, Hezbollah and Hamas are not threats to Americans. They are, I think Hezbollah may have killed or taken some American groups or like people, tourists or something at some point in their history. But like those were people in the region, obviously, to use as like, bargaining
Leverage,
tactics or whatever. But like the purpose of Hezbollah and Hamas, they are resistance groups that were created. They rose up at certain periods of time against, very violent, onslaught by Israel. Their only existence is to resist Israel, right? If Israel today said, Gaza, we're going to leave you alone, Hamas would go away because there's no more purpose for them, right? Like Israel has invaded 20% of Lebanon, and the Lebanese army, the national army, is not in a political position to actually defend Lebanon from Israeli, same as the Syrians. People like to yell at the Syrians, but they don't have the ability right now to get Israel out of their country. Their smart move right now is diplomacy. But yeah, Lebanon relies on U.S. funding. It has to take the U.S. line. And its army is not strong enough to go against Israel and the U.S. right to free its territory from Israel. It doesn't have, so you have a vacuum, and Hezbollah is the thing that exists in this vacuum. So if you don't want Hezbollah to exist, which is again not a threat, not a terrorist organization threat to American citizens, they're not doing bombings in America. They solely exist to protect the territorial integrity of Lebanon, right? And they may use tactics that I don't agree with, that are, illegal under international law, right? I don't think all of their tactics are, but especially in this current conflict, like in the past, but in this current conflict, I mean, they have just been doing normal military things. So it's just stop bombing your neighbors, and these groups will necessarily disband. These groups are made of the widows, or not the widowers, I guess, probably, because it's probably all men, but the orphans and the widowers and the people who have lost their children of Israeli attacks, right? If
they've been radicalized because of, and if we are a target, it's only because we are siding with their aggressor.
Right. And another thing that they point out is all of our assets in the region, all of our military bases, which have been proven to be sitting ducks. I don't know what the point of those military bases are, because they didn't protect Americans in the region at all. They just made them more vulnerable, and they had to evacuate the military bases because they were sitting ducks. But it's or you could just not have military bases in the region.
Who else has military bases literally fucking everywhere but the United States? Literally fucking everywhere. It's crazy.
That was a key thing, because I had always just thought yeah, that's normal. They want an American base. We're the good guys. Of course we should be there. And then I was oh wait, if you look at this through Iran's perspective, and obviously I'm not pro-regime. I think Iran oppresses its people, and it has a lot of problems and human rights concerns. But if you look at it as they say, oh, Iran says death to America, they're bad. They threaten us. Well, if you look at it from their point of view, we say death to Iran, and we have military bases all around them to shoot them. The point of those bases is to shoot Iran.
Yeah, well, to me, it's we can talk about all of the other things that other countries are doing to their people, but what about what our country is doing to our people? And that's where I think all of this interventionism is such a fucking distortion of reality. It's are we even entertaining that conversation? Let's focus on freeing everybody fucking here. Let's focus
Right.
on that's we need to focus on being here. We need to focus on fixing our things
Well,
here, and we need to focus on not having our own dictators and not having, the prison industrial complex and the
and ICE murdering
ICE
human
murdering people
beings on the
constantly,
streets of our country with
Yes, and
impunity.
so to me, I'm like, I'm not even going to argue about who is under a regime and whether or not they need intervention, because I want us to stop this shit
Well,
here.
and I think that we have proven that military intervention into an oppressive regime does
Has
not work.
never, no.
Honestly, the way to open up an oppressive regime is, in my opinion, through trade liberalization, through, when you like sanctions do not work.
They only hurt the people.
They only hurt the people. You have to give the people more power so that they have more power against their government. When the things that we do shift the power balance to the regime. Like, and so, our foreign policy is just, wrong.
Awful. So awful
Terrible.
in every single way.
And the thing is like, how many dictators and oppressive regimes are there around the world? Like, there are a ton in Africa. We're not invading all of Africa, just the places, that have the things that we want. We're not invading Russia. We're not invading China. We're not setting the Uyghurs free. Like, India's got some oppressive regimes as like aspects. We pick and choose, right? So
it's who has the oil, who has the land we want, who has the resources we want. And to keep even, I think it's a waste of time when we try to argue with the people who are like, well, do you not want them to be free of Iraq? Do you not? And it's like, I'm not even going to entertain that, because I want to focus on here. I don't understand. And especially the people who are like, love the founding fathers, who are like, do not get involved in international, alliances and this and that, like focus here. I'm like, how were the founding fathers lovers such fucking warmongers? It's crazy. Okay. I think you have, oh wait, didn't you have a 1 o'clock? Oopsies.
No, it's fine.
Okay. We can and should wrap up. We are almost at 2 hours, but are there any final thoughts you want people to take away from this vote, from this convo, from this discussion?
I think one is like, I think the main thing is like, what the strategy we need is to hyper local, right? We need to be like, because that is how our system is structured, particularly like congressional races. And so getting out in the community, talking to your neighbors, organizing, right? And like, it doesn't have to be like, when I first moved to DC, people were like, so what's your organizing experience? I didn't know what they were talking about. I thought they were talking about like organizing a room. Like, I was like, I'm not very organized as a person, but like, it doesn't have to be this big thing. You can just like meet at a coffee shop with like-minded, you can do a book club, like just ways to get groups of people together, and then you go to your Congress people and you can do flyering, you can do door knocking, you can canvass for electeds. And because that's, I think, the biggest barrier to normal people, because I talk to my friends who are normal, who have no idea what's going on, they're cheerleaders. They don't have time. They've got kids. They're not making their bills. Like, they're working a lot of jobs. And like, when they get home, they don't want to research the elected officials' positions on votes. They just want to like talk with their family. Right. And so any way that we can make this easier to grasp and to like help people get the information like that they need, like that is the work that we need to be doing. And this is a continuous project. Like, there's not going to be a we won and now we can go to brunch. Like, democracy is a continuous project. And I think we've seen that when you take your foot off the gas, when you go to brunch, when you go to sleep, there's other people working in the background. And we have to realize that, like, we have let the other people work in the background, not just on this issue, whether you want to say pharma, whether you want to say corporate, AI, all of these interests. I mean, we have let things get out of control, and it's going to take a long time to start chipping away at the power structures that they have built. But we can do it, because at the end of the day, all they have is money, and like, it is votes. So we just need people. We just need more people.
Yes, 100%. All right. Well, thank you for coming by the show. We will have you on
Thank
again
you
soon.
guys. And
Yes,
sorry
yes,
if I
yes.
offended anybody. That's, I do.
We're all good. All right. Then I'm going to say goodbye. I don't know who else is in here. Thank you for coming in, Captain USA and Jonathan Swift. It was good to see you. Chicken Nuggies. Chicago Bish was always great to see you. And Blue, again, always love to see you. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.